Hi, I'm Michela Menting, and today's snapshot, I'll be speaking with Z Hosain from about the State of IoT 2026 and beyond. So Z, what drove the purpose and the content of the report that we're providing as part of this research?
That's a darn good question, Michaela. If you look at reports that are presented on IoT, they tend to focus on looking backwards typically for about a year or so, what changes happened. And they tend to pick a topic, a specific area like maybe IoT security. Or they will look forward with safe evolutionary changes in the next year or two. The purpose of our paper was to excite people about IoT so that we would see what the future impact was likely to be, to make it clear that this is sort of the next major technical revolution that people can expect and that we are seeing come about. Waves that are so meaningful that they become normal, they become accepted and natural as part of our daily lives, so that we don't even think about them anymore. That's the purpose, what we want to identify. We want to get people excited about what's happening in IoT. So we spent a bit of time on looking backwards, a retrospective, just to give you where we've been, where we're coming from in the past year, but that adds future prospects, but perhaps even above and beyond what might be possible in the next year or two into what might be treated as semi-science fiction-like possibilities, things that perhaps don't happen or don't happen in a time frame that we would expect. But it'll be fun to see what IoT is capable of doing.
So, if we fast forward to 2028 and beyond, when does IoT stop feeling like a collection of gadgets and really start feeling like an intelligent living system around us?
I think that happens when IoT becomes less about individual devices and individual applications where you know there is an IoT component associated with that application, and more about how the environment, how the operational environment of that application behave. When you look at 2028 and beyond, the shift is that connected systems that are providing data, providing the kinds of IoT applications that we are using today, sensing the world. We're going to go beyond that. We're going to go into areas where the systems will start responding in real time to the data they're gathering. So if you look at cities or buildings or vehicles or network infrastructure, it just feels very coordinated, and you can start seeing adaptive responses to the kinds of inputs that they are seeing and that people are expecting to have happen for them very automatically. At that point, you'll stop thinking of IoT as just a set of gadgets and applications, and it'll feel like an intelligent component, a layer that is woven into our everyday life.
So, the white paper describes 2027-2028 as the autonomy inflection point. What does that actually look like day to day? And what kinds of decisions will connected systems start making on their own?
If you look at IoT applications today, they tend to just gather data. They're connected systems, and they're basically just observing what's going on. Or you might be controlling a few functions from a remote perspective. But I think what happens is that instead of just reporting data, you're starting to see applications of edge AI, which are going to start making meaningful decisions on their own, adjusting, perhaps coordinating information, flagging the kinds of security anomalies that are happening in IoT today, and then responding locally in that moment when you gather data that needs an action that can be taken independent of a human oversight. So it could be robots in warehouses, it could be airports operating with some minimal oversight, it could be parking systems that understand behavior, that understand what people are doing to, use them, or healthcare systems that infer that something may be wrong with a particular patient and that needs an attention from a doctor in a certain way that they might have overlooked. I think the biggest point to be made here is that instead of just gathering data and informing somebody, they start to take action. The efforts involved in doing AI-driven actions, I think, are going to finally take root with care, because you have to be very sure that the actions that those devices are taking don't hurt human beings, in particular, for example, in a medical solution. So you have to be careful about the incorrect action. Some IoT applications, if you were expecting to have a human being being treated perhaps in a medical care environment, you don't want to harm them. So you want to take actions that are meaningful and that are perhaps need human oversight in the beginning as they're trained in the long run.
A lot of people still think of IoT as sensors pushing data into dashboards. What might an AI native IoT world actually feel like to live in?
It's going to be much more seamless than that. I think that the data gathering functions will result in actions being taken at the edge, where the intelligence, the processing, the understanding of what needs to be done is right there, where the systems can sense, they can interpret the data, and they can adapt without having to constantly wait for some kind of a human response or maybe a remote server that's far away. In some cases, like if you look at the autonomous vehicle environment, you might have a scenario where the response needs to be so fast that relying on a human oversight or relying on a remote server to give you the answer just simply won't work. So, what you see is that the systems become more AI driven. You get fewer visible layers of technology and you get much more of a responsive environment. It's really the idea of intelligent environments becoming a reality. So, cities that think, infrastructure that anticipate the needs of the human beings that are in that infrastructure, and machines that work, they move naturally alongside us. They become part of what we expect to be normal.
So by the end of the decade, where do you think people will be most surprised to find edge intelligence embedded into their everyday lives?
I think the biggest surprise will be how much intelligence will be embedded in the background within the infrastructure itself. Not just, the phones and the electronic devices that we're familiar with, but in roads, in buildings, in public spaces, in mobility systems, in the healthcare environments, and utilities. This white paper, what we're trying to do is point to a world where sensors like cameras, LiDAR, radar, thermal imaging, and other forms of perception that are built into the systems around us will become part of the solution. So the smartest parts of IoT, maybe the parts that people don't even realize is there. It's invisible because it's just built into what we expect in everyday life.
So you talk about IoT as a tool for planetary stewardship. Now, if we get this right, how could connected intelligence reshape how we manage agriculture, energy, water, and entire ecosystems?
This is one of the most exciting parts of the future because IoT should and can become a stewardship layer for the planet. If we don't use IoT for the benefit of humanity, then we're not using it right. We're talking about connected systems that we can use to monitor forests, fields, coastlines, wildlife habitats, water usage, agricultural crop health, biodiversity, and renewable energy networks continuously and at a large scale where the benefits of IoT can truly be meaningful. With long-lived sensors today, edge intelligence and satellite-driven connectivity in perhaps in extremely remote areas, we can gain a very large immediate understanding of what's happening in our natural world and gives us the ability to manage those resources far more intelligent and far more proactively for all of humanity.
So looking ahead to the early 2030s, what is the most hopeful version of the IoT future in your mind, Zee? The one thing humanity gains that would have sounded like science fiction just a few years ago?
I think the most hopeful version is that IoT becomes almost invisible, but incredibly powerful in how it improves our daily life. By the early 2030s, it will have become part of our fabric, part of what we expect as being normal. How mobility, healthcare, industry, homes, and environments operate. The things that we do that were once considered to be science fiction become normal. Systems helping us move better, heal better, use our resources, our natural planetary resources more wisely, and effectively protect our planet more effectively. That's the real promise, and it's what excites me the most about the future for IoT. Technology helping us, working in the background to make life better for everyone.
Thanks, Zee. For more on the state of IoT 2026 and beyond, download our report using the link below.